What happens when you put away your two-stroke equipment without repairing it in some way? The short answer is nothing good. Fuel in the system will stay in there and turn into something that's not going to make it easy to start the next time you need it. This can happen to anyone, not to only those that do it on purpose. And as you might have guessed, the one you're looking at is in that very situation. In today's video, we're going to be looking at this Stihl Hedge trimmer. And the problem is that it's been unused for a long time and now it won't start. So from what I was told, it was bought and used a couple of times and then put away. Now overall, its condition is excellent, however it does have some scuffs from being moved around over the years. So I do want to try and start it and show you what it's doing. Now there is fuel in the tank, but with the busted purge bulb, getting fuel to the carb will be tough. So you can cheat a bit and force the engine to run, which will help to get fuel to the carb. And the easiest way is to prime the carb with some fuel. So after it runs for a couple of seconds, we'll then choke the carb and then try starting it again. And as you just saw, without adding fuel to the carb, it didn't even try and start. So after pouring out the fuel, I am glad to tell you that the fuel filter is still connected to the line. This is important because if it had come loose, the carb could be clogged with debris. I wasn't concerned about this machine since it had very little use, but yours might be different. And once the fuel lines have been disconnected, we'll do the same for the throttle cable, then we'll be able to remove the carb. Also, be aware that the carb might get stuck to the gasket on the engine. So first up is taking off the purge bulb, and as you can tell, it's badly cracked after I tried pressing on it. This is what can happen if you leave the wrong type of fuel in the system for too long. So this is the metering diaphragm, and on first impression, it's badly warped, which is not ideal. The second thing you'll notice is that the diaphragm is showing signs of hardening. Now that sound you're hearing is not supposed to happen. The diaphragm should be soft enough not to make that sound. Now it's really not that bad, and if you were in a pinch, you could try and save it. All you have to do is drop it into a rejuvenation bath for a couple of days. The longer you leave it in there, the softer the diaphragm will end up. So next, we're going to take a look at the pumping side of the carb, but based on how it looked on the other side, it should look pretty good. And just as expected, it's very clean on this side too. The last item we need to check on is the inlet screen. I'll just fill the pocket for the screen with my cleaner and then press on the rocker arm on the other side. You should then see the cleaner disappear through the screen, which means it'll allow fuel to pass through it too. But if your cleaner won't pass through the screen, you'll have to continue cleaning it until it does. Now these bulbs are not that expensive, but if you buy a single one, be prepared to pay a lot for it. The same goes for these diaphragms. A single one will cost you several dollars, but when bought in a multi-pack, they're not that much. Now I know most consumers are not going to buy a 20-pack of these diaphragms, but that option is out there. So what would you do with the rest of them? Well, I would just sell the ones you don't use. And once the carb is finally back together, we can install it onto the engine. This, however, could bring up more problems, as you're about to see. If you're getting gasoline with ethanol in it, it could do more harm than you realize. So after adding some fresh fuel to the tank, that's when we realized there's a leak. I wasn't exactly sure where it was leaking from, but come to find out, it's the fuel tank grommet for the return line. So I don't mind if a fuel tank has these grommets, however, it's just something else to go bad later on. Now this one has shrank a bit and also become hard, meaning it's not able to seal against the opening like it should. So surprisingly, I happen to have a spare from a different project, but if you had to buy some, a pair will cost you about $5. But just like the other parts, if you buy a bigger package of them, it'll make them even cheaper. Next, we'll cut a new return line and install it into the new grommet. I do have to say that I was relieved that the return grommet was the one leaking and not the other fuel line. The cost to replace the filter line is extremely high in comparison to the return line. Now, could you get away with just using a thicker fuel line? Probably, but I'd rather not find out. Also, using a transparent line for the return line is nice because you can see the fuel returning back from the carb. Now, if for some reason you don't see any fuel filling up the bulb or returning back to the fuel tank, then you can either go back through the carb again or just replace it. I don't know if you realized it, but I barely did any cleaning inside the carb. Now the reason why was because the carb was in great condition. But if yours is not in good condition, a cheap aftermarket carb might be a good idea. So once the carb and air filter are back in place, we'll then choke the carb and then try starting it. So it is at least trying to start, however it won't do much more than that. So to help it get started, I'll turn the idle adjustment screw in a tiny bit to increase the idle speed. But while we're here, I'd also like to point out the fuel adjustment screws as well. The one closer to the engine is the L screw, and it's for low engine speed fuel adjustment and quick throttle squeezes. While the one closer to the airbox is for high engine speed fuel adjustments or when the trigger is fully squeezed. Now because we can't get the engine to even idle, we'll be turning the L screw out about a quarter turn to add more fuel to the engine. We'll then try starting the engine one more time. So the extra fuel helped out a lot and kept the engine running. However, when trying to squeeze the throttle, it stopped. So if a quarter turn helped out on the L screw, let's see if another quarter turn will help out even more. Also, before we do this again, I'll give the blades a quick spray of lubricant. That way if the engine stays running, we won't have to worry about them. So this time it stayed running and was even revving just fine. So we did end up increasing the idle speed, but I'm going to turn it back down for right now. But if your engine is still bogging down when squeezing the trigger, then try turning the L screw one more time. Just be aware that every time you add more fuel at idle, the engine speed will decrease, so you'll need to compensate with more idle adjustments. Also, if you think the blades are dull, you might consider sharpening them, however this one's still very sharp. If your engine has a lot of run time on it, you might want to take out the spark arrestor screen to check for carbon buildup. This one is not terrible, but there's a bit more on there than I would have thought. So I have to wonder if it spent more time idling than actually being used. Which brings up an interesting idea. If you're not going to take care of it, then why not buy a machine that's half the cost of this one? This one is priced quite high when it comes to residential trimmers, but there are plenty out there that are literally half the cost, if not less than that. It is their choice, of course, but I know if I was bad at taking care of stuff, I'd probably go with something a bit more affordable. So my question is, would you buy such an expensive machine only to treat it like it was a cheaper one? Or would you just take better care of it? Thank you for watching. I really do appreciate your time here. Please feel free to ask me any questions about this project or about your own projects, and I hope to see you in the next video.